Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we have Daniel Palmer with us. He is Innovia's development consultant, and he will be talking about creating and copying companies in Dynamics NAV. And we just ask that if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them into the questions box, and we'll get them called out at the Q&A time toward the end of the webinar. And we do record all of our webinars, so this will be available for you to review again, or if you'd like to share it with anyone, you are more than welcome to. That will be on our website at innovia.com by the end of the week. And so now I will turn it over to Daniel, and he will kick off our presentation.
Good morning, folks. Thank you. My name is Daniel Palmer. I've been with Innovia almost 2 years now as a development consultant. In this short webinar, I'm going to be going over first how to create a new company, how to import data into that company using a rapid start package, and I'm going to show you how to copy companies within the same database as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in, and we're going to start out by creating a new company here. This is a demo database. Start out, so our first step, we're just going to search for companies in our search box here. And I have an existing test company here, but we're going to start with a new, we're going to call it webinar test 2. There's 2 checkboxes here. We have evaluation company and enable assisted company setup. Right now, we're not going to check evaluation company. That's if you're setting up a test company with sampled data in it. You're not going to want to check this box for a company that you want live data in. It's really just going to give you some data to start out with. You can think of it as dummy data, just something to play around with. Enable assisted company setup is going to give you access to a setup wizard. This one we are going to check. It is an easier way of inputting some of this data. And it gives you this message here: no configuration packages defined in your system. We haven't created those configuration packages yet, but we will be creating them. So I'm just going to hit OK here. We have our new test company is in here. Right now, that company is completely blank. There's no data in there. So for our next piece, I'm going to be bringing in some data from a Cronus database using that rapid start package, and I'll be putting it into our new test company. So I'm actually already on the Cronus company, but to switch over to that, you just do select company and then select the company you want to copy data from. In our example, it's just going to be this Cronus USA company. So then you hit OK. Now that we're in that company, I'm going to navigate to our configuration packages. We're going to be creating a new configuration package. And again, I already have a test package in here, but I'm going to create a new one just so you can see the process on this. The only 2 fields that are required, actually there's 3 fields required on the header. Code, we're going to do web test, and I'll put the same name in on the package. You can put anything you want in there. If you're bringing multiple tables over, sometimes it's easier to name your package according to the tables you have in it. This one, we're just going to be doing a test. The language ID for US English is 1033. And I'm just going to bring over the customer table, which is 18. You can do a lookup on this and select your tables. So you can add in multiple tables if you want. So I could do 18 and 22 is not a table here, but you can put in multiple tables. Get rid of that error. So we have our table 18 in here. We can see number of fields is 87. You can specify which fields you want to bring forward. In this example, we're going to take all of them. We have 68 records in this demo database. There's 68 customers here. So the rest of it looks good. We're going to export this package and save it. And we'll call it package web test. That name just came in automatically from our names up here, so we'll save that. Creates a number of configuration tables as well. We're not going to be worried about those today. It's a way to kind of create a questionnaire for when this data is imported, but since I'm bringing the full tables over, that's not going to come into play here. So our next step, now that we've created that configuration package, I'm going to jump into our new empty company here, which was webinar test. We're going to go back to our configuration packages. And actually, now that I say it, my test company was webinar test 2. My mistake. All right, so this company setup, this is from the enable, the company setup checkbox that I'd added when we'd originally created this company. This wizard will pop up automatically the first time you initialize the company, first time you open it. So it allows you to input a decent amount of information from the get-go. It's easiest to input this data now. The only required field is actually name. So the rest of this info, I recommend that you input it through the wizard. It's just going to make life a little easier. You can input all sorts of address info, your company logo. But for now, I'm just going to skip over all this. And finally, we will finish the setup. We're in the new webinar test 2 company. Navigate back to configuration packages. There's nothing in here. We're going to import our package web test package that I had just exported. We will open that. This process can take a decent amount of time. For our example, there were a limited number of customers in the demo database I was using, so this shouldn't take too long. All right, so we have our configuration package populated. Number of tables, it says 11. You might think, he only brought one table over. Why does it say 11? It's including those configuration tables that I had mentioned briefly earlier. Since I hadn't set up a configuration worksheet to use, those are not going to come into play here. So I'm going to view this. In many situations, if you're bringing data forward, you're going to run into package errors. We didn't in this situation because that was standard customer data I was bringing in from a demo database. So there wasn't anything too complicated about it. A lot of times you'll run into issues where maybe you'll have a ship to code defined in one of your companies that doesn't exist in the new company you're copying data into. If one of these customers had a ship to address that was not defined in the new company, it's going to give you an error here. The easiest way for that specific example, the easiest way to get around that error is just add that ship to address into the new company, or you can delete the reference to that ship to address from the customer who's having this issue. It's really a case-by-case basis on how you resolve those errors, but it's fairly common to encounter that. NAV will automatically validate this information when it brings it in. There's a way for you to avoid that validation. I would strongly discourage you from avoiding the validation because you can end up with a mess of data in your system. You won't have any indication that it's a problem until you start running into errors where it'll say that ship to address doesn't exist, and you'll think, well, why did it let me put that in there? That data was brought in unvalidated, so that's why you want to always validate this data. And again, it does that by default, so unless you specifically avoid doing that, it'll validate that information. So we have all of our data here. It's not imported at this point. To do that, you need to click this, it's the functions button here. So we're going to have our table 18 highlighted. We will click functions and apply data. One table has been selected. Do you want to continue? I do. One tables are processed, 68 errors found, 68 records inserted. So I think that the reason I did not get those errors before, I didn't actually validate that package. I may have been off base there when I said that would automatically validate. Let's see if it gives me the package errors when I click validate package. All right, let me restart that particular piece of this. I'm going to take a look and see what these package errors are. And you can on any particular one of these errors, you can click and select Show Error, and it'll show you what the issue is. And you can see these are problems with global dimensions, with global posting groups. So this is data that was defined in that demo database. I may have just chosen a poor table to bring forward. As you can see, there's quite a few package errors here. I don't think it's going to be feasible for us to work through all 639 of these. One way that I could have avoided this on this particular record, if I brought forward the dimension value table and the customer posting group. So if I brought a couple more of these tables forward, they contain some supporting data that's used in this customer table. So again, I'm not going to work through that entire error list here, but I suspect that a lot of these will have similar errors. So if you show the error on this one, it references the dimension value table and the customer posting group. So for this example, if I had taken this data out of the Cronus USA database and imported it into another Cronus database that has some of this supporting data, we wouldn't have run into this issue. It was really just a matter of me importing it into a completely empty company here. So I will, I'm going to move on here to our next step of copying companies. At this point, I have the data in here. I don't think it's going to be feasible for us to work through the error messages there to apply all that data. So to copy an existing company, the setup or the process is quite a bit easier. There are a couple catches that you need to be aware of, and I'm going to go through those briefly here. So again, I'm going to be copying this Cronus USA company. So you highlight the company you wish to copy. You will click the copy button, and our new company name will be Cronus 2. The main thing to be aware of when you're copying a company is that it's going to copy every piece of data within it. That includes ledger entries, that includes credit card information, bank account information. So there's a number of pieces that you want to address if you copy a company fully. Those are a few aspects of it, but you really just need to be aware of any pieces you need to disconnect from that company after you copy it. All right, so then you see here, you have your Cronus 2 company successfully copied, and we should be able to select that Cronus 2 company. And just to verify that, I'm going to open up the customers list. And you can see we have our customers in here. So that concludes my presentation here. I'm going to open it up, pass it back over to Angie here, and open it up for some questions. See if we encountered anything that anyone's looking for clarification on.
Okay, Daniel, yes, we do have a few questions. The first question is, as we attempt to post journal entries in a new dummy company, we can't seem to get Rapid Start to import what we need to post. Is there a better way for us to do this?
Yeah, so that is a good question. There's a couple ways to bring data to new companies. The first thing I would do when you're verifying that information, just make sure that you don't have any of those errors that I encountered. It's possible that you're running into that issue where there's validation problems. If you're not seeing those errors and you're still having issues, one thing to note is that when you're bringing data to a new company or between servers, the table definitions need to match exactly. So if you have different fields on those tables, you're going to run into issues bringing the data in. So you're essentially going to be copying from a table to a like table. The only difference between those two tables is going to be the data within them. I would say if you've checked both of those boxes and you're still having issues, you can export those configuration packages to an Excel sheet. And I can show you real quick how to do that. I believe you can, let's see. Yeah, so there's under the Actions tab, there's an Export to Excel option. I would try exporting it to Excel, and at that point you can check and make sure that the table definitions match before you import that. And then when you import it, rather than import package, you're going to import from Excel. And if all of that does not work, then you may, let's see, there may be a better way to do it, but at that point, what I would do is probably transfer the data through SQL, which is something you may want to get your partner involved on. But again, if you can verify that the tables are the same and you resolve the errors you're getting on when you're trying to import the package, that data should go in smoothly. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We are interested in learning how we can do this on our own, as we have always paid a consultant to do this for us. That's possible, right?
Yes, that is possible. You do not need any special license to be able to export and import data using the Rapid Start packages. It's a good idea to run through this in a test database first. As you can see, I'd run into some package errors. You kind of want to make sure you're not going to hit anything unexpected before you bring the data in. So I would say, yes, you can absolutely do this on your own. Do a little bit of playing around before you try and do it in a live environment, because there are ways to go wrong.
Okay, thank you. And can you copy data between different servers using this method?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the one thing to make sure of is that your table definitions match exactly. I've mentioned that a couple times. Having the same fields, the same field numbers is critical. even small differences between fields. If you have a text field in one table that's 20 characters long and it's 50 characters long in another, in the table you're bringing the data into, that can cause more issues than you might expect. So you really have to make sure that those tables do match 100%. And if they do, then you can really copy that data between any servers that you need to. You just need NAV installed on both of them, and you can export that configuration package and import it back in however you'd like.
Okay, thank you. And what happens if you choose not to validate values from the configuration file on import?
Sure. So and we ran into that a little bit. If you do not validate those values, you can end up with data that really does not make sense. So I gave an example of a customer ship to address. So the example was, if you might have a number of ship to addresses defined in company A, and we're copying from company A to company B. When you bring those customers forward, they might have references to data that in other tables that does not exist. And if you try and input a value that doesn't exist onto that customer record, it's going to tell you that value doesn't exist in the table you're referencing. Now that's standard NAV, but if you bring the table from company A to company B and you don't validate the information when you import the data, it won't tell you that there was a problem. It'll import that data, but then you're going to end up with references to things that aren't there. You might have references to items that don't exist, things like that. So it can really get pretty messy if you do not validate that information.
Okay, great. Looks like that is all of the questions that we have. If anyone has any further questions and you would like to talk to us more about some of the issues that you are encountering, please don't hesitate to give us a call, or you can email us, info@innovia.com, or you can call us at 800-834-7700, or contact your account rep, and they will be able to further assist you on your questions. So thank you everyone for attending. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day and attend this webinar. Please visit our website and look at some of the events that we have coming up for the remainder of this month. November 1st, we have Avalara. They will be presenting on economic nexus and the future of sales tax, the impact of the South Dakota versus Wayfair incorporated ruling. So if you're interested in that webinar, please register for that. Or if you are interested in any of our events that we have coming up, Collaborate Canada, we have representatives of Innovia that will be attending those events in Canada, so check out our website for that. And then we do have some other webinars coming up for November and December, so be sure to check those out. All right, thank you again everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody.